Welcome to the Coffee and Counseling Podcast, where two licensed psychotherapists give you their unfiltered opinions on mental health, wellness, life, and everything in between. It's real, raw, and ready to challenge what you think you know. Get ready for some tough love. Before we begin, just a brief disclaimer, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not take the place of therapy. We hope you enjoy today's session.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Coffee and Counseling, where we don't spill the tea, but the coffee will be piping hot while we talk about all things counseling. We're your hosts, Rachel Steinhardt
and Stephanie Schaick. This session is going to be airing just 2 days ahead of Thanksgiving, a holiday that's supposed to be all about gratitude and togetherness, but often we see can bring a lot of stress, anxiety, and pressure. So we wanted to have a real conversation about what this time of year brings up for so many people. We're going to be talking about things like food struggles and eating concerns, travel stress and emotional exhaustion, potential grief if the holiday looks different than before, as well as family conflict and boundaries. So whether you're excited or dreading it or somewhere in between, you're not alone. We're talking about ways to protect your peace and find meaning in the chaos. So grab your coffee and let's get into it. So we normally take this section of the podcast to do a high and low from our week. But in the spirit of Thanksgiving, we thought it might be a good idea to list a couple things that each of us are grateful for. So Rachel, would you like to get us started?
Sure. So I always say before I get into my gratefulness things, because I feel like I'm going to say them and listeners are going to be like, you've got to be kidding me. I think that maybe it's not obvious. For me, in my own mind, it's obvious that I am thankful for my home and for my family and for my friends and for the clothes on my back and the food on my table. Like, those are things I'm thankful for all the time. And something that actually really helps me maintain wellness, and something I want to encourage all of you, is to actually truly spend time being grateful for the little things. Because when you are able to find happiness in little things in life, you're able to always have a piece of happiness with you, no matter what craziness is happening in your world. And so it's not that it's superficial. It's more that as much as the big things matter, the little things matter too. And a combination of a lot of little things that bring you joy is what brings overall, contentness, happiness. And so it's important to notice those things too. So I just want to preface by saying that. That being said, and since this podcast is Coffee and Counseling, I am so grateful for Nespresso's new fall flavors, because the level of joy I'm having drinking my morning coffees right now, is above and beyond. And for a mama, running through the carpool line half asleep, it's a life alteration, having a new flavor or new flavors that I'm so excited to have, and so yummy, and just literally makes me excited for them, that part of my morning when I am not always excited for the morning because it's crazy and I'm so tired. So it's really nice to have that. So that's definitely one. I'll say the second one, and Steph and I were just talking about this, is it's not intense because we're in Florida, but there's a cute little change of weather. It's a cute little kiss of wind. But it's still nice. I appreciate it because I don't like the New York cold. It's not something that I miss. It's not something that I ever want to go back to, quite frankly. I always said, people who told me I was crazy for living here, and they're like, don't you want to have all the seasons? No, I don't. If I miss snow, I can go take a ski trip for a weekend and move on as if I ski. I don't. But we'll pretend that I did. I would really just sit in the hot tub and drink hot cocoa, or
I'd be with you.
espresso martini. I don't know. But honestly, yeah, it's just, this is good enough for me. 70 degrees, 75 degrees when we're really crazy, 65 degrees, a light, cute jacket or cardigan. If we, this is the weather where our Floridians bring out our booties, and that, I'm a happy camper. That's cute. It doesn't need to get colder than that. It's just not necessary.
It's a flawed design over here.
Yeah. So I love it. And it's for me, just the perfect combination. Also, honestly, being a parent, this is it's so underrated, but this is really one of the biggest reasons I I moved here was because the quality of life for our kids and also for ourselves is
Mhm.
so different when you have the entire year to like genuinely enjoy being outside without the weather like physically harming you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I just remember like this the New York cold is like painful. It is so uncomfortable. So I never wanted to go outside. And now it's just stunning. Like I want to go outside in the morning. I want to go outside in the evening. I want to go all day long. It's just so beautiful. My kids get to be outside all year round. It's something I'm so
Mhm.
grateful for. So definitely feeling extra grateful this time of year when everyone else is like starting to freeze their tuchus off and I'm like chilling like a villain over here. It's great. Um,
Mhm.
and I would say the third thing that I am grateful for is I think I've just been really making a conscious effort to spend more time with friends. Whenever I get like tiny little pockets of time and like even if I don't, I kind of just make it. I'm like, okay, the laundry's just gonna sit there and I'm just gonna go out with a friend to coffee or, like, go over to their house. And it's been really nice to have even small versions of that and be able to connect to people in my community and strengthen friendships I already have. And creating that in the parent time is very difficult, so I'm proud of myself for doing it. And I've also been really really just enjoying um like doing that for myself and my health and my life. And I'm just I mean, being a therapist, very personable person. So I think that that's
Mhm.
something that when I don't have it as much, I really, really miss. So it's been really nice to have time be filled with that. But
Mhm.
what about you, Steph? What are your three things that you're grateful for?
Yeah, so I love everything you said. And I also have a preface before I say the things that I'm grateful for, because it's so true that most of us can say certain things that we are grateful for, like right off the top of our head. Like, of course, I'm so grateful for my family. I'm so grateful for my cats. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for my home. And while those are all so true. I'm grateful for my health. But sometimes we can almost take it for granted,
Yes.
where we don't really connect to the spirit of gratitude. And that's why
Mhm.
when we talk about like having a gratitude practice, which, spoiler alert, is actually our listener's question for today. So we'll get into that a little bit more there. But in order to really connect to that gratitude, we want to challenge ourselves to find more like little things that we can find gratitude to, because then we are more so looking out for it, and making more of a conscious effort, but also finding the different small parts of our day and bringing gratitude into that. It just
Mhm.
is it could really be a major shift for a lot of people. I know it definitely has for me whenever I'm consciously practicing gratitude. So, with that being said, a couple things that I am grateful for. I know that you had mentioned, Rachel, what we were talking about earlier about the change in temperature. It's because I am more north in Florida, it definitely is a little cooler here. I know my sister who lives closer to Rachel, like you guys stay pretty warm all the time. But I love it actually, because it does get a little chilly, but I love wearing the sweatshirts and all that. And that's where it brings me to my gratitude of like having heat and being in control of my heat, because I'm ready to turn on the heat like the second I get a little chilly. So that's something I'm really excited about. And also, like hot showers, just like getting in a hot shower after you are a little chilly,
Yeah.
or really catch like the cold because you were out and it was nighttime or whatever and started getting chilly. It's something that is really, really lovely. So that's one thing, just like heat and having access to hot showers, and that's awesome.
I really love that.
Yeah, I remember loving that in New York, but the problem is then you get back out of the shower and it's
And then
like,
you feel like
oh,
you're gonna die. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
not
Exactly.
to be dramatic, but like honestly, you guys.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I'm grateful for that. And another thing I'm grateful for that I think I alluded to a little bit in our last session, that like coming back to like after my cruise and just getting back to normal living, we take that for granted sometimes, and having gratitude for that. But I was just really thinking that I really am grateful for just like a normal Tuesday or a normal
Yeah.
day, whatever that is, because there's so many things, and not to create anxiety or anything like that, but there are so many things that can go wrong, and that could be life altering or even just unpleasant. So sometimes just having a mundane day that you're working, you're doing your thing, nothing crazy is happening, we
Mhm.
can, I think we really neglect to find gratitude. I know for myself, at least I could speak for myself,
Mhm.
really neglect to find gratitude for those days. And I've been really trying to connect a little bit more to that.
100%. I always say no news is the best news. Like,
Mhm.
you don't need things to report. Like, just enjoy life, you know?
Right, right. Exactly. So my last thing is just like holiday decoration. So
Mm.
I love Christmas decorations. I know, Rachel, we've talked about this too before. When we did that a while ago, when we were both in New York, we went to a chocolate emporium, or like expo. It was a chocolate expo at the Cradle of Aviation Museum. You remember? And it was like all
Oh
decked out.
my god. Steph, you remember things that I think like were like removed from my memory.
Because I remember you saying, like, I really do love looking at like the Christmas
Oh my
decoration.
gosh, we all any Jew that tells you they don't enjoy the pretty lights is, I don't know, lying, joking. They're beautiful. Like, they're
I
so
know.
fun and we love them. They're lights. Who doesn't love lights and light
Yeah, like
shows
the
and
colors, the lights, all of that.
yeah, yeah. I think the
Mhm.
only time that for us it becomes more like questionable is like when we're walking with our kids who don't necessarily know as much about Christianity and they're like, "Mommy,
Mhm.
like look, there's like little kids with a baby. What's that?" And we're like, "I don't know how to explain Jesus to you right now."
Yeah, I can understand how that might be difficult, but
But no,
yeah,
it's
so
beautiful, and
yeah.
I love watching like other religions and other cultures whenever get so excited about their holidays and what they get to do because we have so many. Thank God we have so many holidays.
Mhm.
It's like there's very few months on the calendar that we don't. And so being able to watch other people like rejoice in their holidays, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. So I love that, and I'm really excited for Christmas. I'm in the hunt for a nativity scene, which is what you're describing with Jesus in the manger. I
Yeah.
want to get a nice one that like I could pass down, type of thing. So I'm kind of
Aw.
on a hunt on finding a really nice one right
Where do
now.
you guys get those from?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out because I mean, you can get it anywhere, but there's so many like
Like,
varieties,
yes.
and there's a lot of I don't mean to like be judgmental about it, but there are a lot of ones that won't last. Like it's like kind of cheap, and that's not what I
100%. I'm
want.
sure. I'm
So
sure. Like, I've seen some that it's like, it looks like someone like hand carved it. And I'm like, okay, that thing's going to last until the end of time, you know?
exactly.
But yeah, that makes sense. I think if it's something you want to pass down, it's probably like a much larger investment.
Right, right. So that's what I'm trying to figure out and to find that. I know that I mean, it's hard right now to find anything that's like really great quality. I think that there's so many things that like fast fashion, fast I mean
Yeah.
that's a whole other topic, but that's what I'm finding even with Christmas decorations. I like the timeless things, but
Yeah.
a lot of the decorations that you can get really easily at least
Yeah.
are
Maybe
not really
try
great.
Etsy because I feel like that's where all the like handmade hardcore.
Yeah, that's a good. I did find a really nice set on Amazon. I do want to do a little digging, but maybe Etsy because I'm like, oh, it might be a nice story to have it from somewhere other than Amazon. But
Yeah.
I'm not against Amazon here, so we'll
Yeah. Don't
see.
worry, guys. We love Amazon. No hate.
Oh gosh, Amazon loves us, so
True story.
what can we say? All right. So let's just talk for a moment about why we wanted to cover this topic. Of course, Thanksgiving is one of the holidays that we associate with joy, gratitude, celebration. Like we said before, it really can bring up a lot of different emotions, including some not so desirable emotions like grief, anxiety, and sadness. So we really want to leave some space to discuss how Thanksgiving might not look like this joyous event for everyone, and also it might not be so simple that it's just sad or it's just happy. We usually do have a little bit more of complication and complex emotions and experiences than that.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of expectations of, what the like perfect Thanksgiving is. It reminds me of people having like, they have like Sunday scaries. I feel like you have birthday scaries, like holiday scaries, like this idea of all of this built up angst and anxiety over how a day should go, could go, all the things that could go right, all the things that could go wrong, like fears that it's not going to live up to expectations, fears that it's going to be really, really bad because of everything that is involved in the day. And there's just like so many thoughts and emotions attached to going into like a big day, let alone Thanksgiving, which is just like celebrated by so many people. Most of the time, it's everyone's family, everyone's friends. Like it's a lot for a lot of people. And yes, some would do absolutely anything to have that. And there's some people who wish they could have that and they don't. And there's some people that do have that, and they're like having extra sessions with me and Steph for like a month before to prepare them. So, to each their own. I think that especially when you are somebody that is more excited about the holidays and you want to have this like picture perfect Thanksgiving, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. And I know in the Jewish world, we have that with like literally every holiday. And it really is exhausting. Like you want to make the most, I mean, it's beautiful because like we create this incredible thing, but it's exhausting. I mean, you are making yourself crazy to create this like perfect, beautiful table and make a million delicious, gorgeous dishes. And you want to make like your house perfect for your guests. And it always reminds me of these reels on Instagram where like, they make these reels about like what someone who's hosting like thinks that your guests are going to do versus reality. And like you see like the guests supposedly like this is the person's fear. Like a guest comes in with like a magnifying glass looking at like the literal floor like behind the toilet and like, oh, I found a speck, I found a piece of dust. And even though we know it's ridiculous, like we still do that and make ourselves crazy because we want to be the hostess with the mostest, and we want to have the perfect decor and create the perfect setting and mood, and everyone to be having a good time. And the reality is sometimes the turkey's going to burn, and sometimes the decor is going to break, and sometimes we can't control family members that have literally no filter and bring down the mood and say dumb things that they shouldn't say. And it doesn't always come out perfect, and we have to hold space for that reality and still try and be excited and enjoy it and not let those things like take away and steal the joy of the day. And I think that that's where like it's funny, like the Hallmark card, Hallmark holiday, Hallmark movie, Lifetime movie, whatever it is, like those images, I think as we get more modern, it's a little bit more realistic and they make it into comedies of like the insanity that happens at home. So I definitely appreciate that. But, like just like the old school, like picture perfect, whatever the family you think it's supposed to look like, or the home is supposed to look like, or whatever it is, it just has a lot of setup for disappointment, especially in today's day and age where it's not just you have that, but obviously, and I know we bring this up in like every episode because this is the world that we live in, but with social media, the level of comparison is through the literal roof. Like how many people you get to have versus this other person gets to have, and what does their dinner look like versus your dinner, and what do your outfits look like versus you. I remember one of the first years, and I don't remember if this was around Christmas time or Thanksgiving time. I don't remember what it was, where doing like dances with your family became like a thing. You know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. I think
started wearing like matching pajamas and started doing a dance. And I don't think I looked at it and was jealous, but I was kind of like, wow, like look how perfect I really think I fell for it for a minute. I was like, you all look like you're having the time of your lives and you're all best friends and you're wearing, friggin' matching pajamas and doing a choreographed dance. And I'm sitting here like this one's trying not to like, lose their mind on this sibling. And this sibling is like not partaking in this thing. And this one's not helping enough in the kitchen. And like, I'm just like, hello, why can't we do a choreographed dance with matching pajamas?
Yeah, I totally get that. And with social media too, it really does portray sometimes some not so real things. I don't know if you ever heard of it. The Schaick family, they're big on YouTube they used to be at least, and they would do this big Christmas special every year. And it was like the most fun, and people look forward to like seeing how they celebrated Christmas. He's like one of the OG YouTubers or whatnot.
Oh, I have no
And
idea
they
what
had
you're talking about, probably because it's a Christmas special, so I have no clue what you're talking about.
totally
So
understood.
tell
So
me.
anyway, it was very much like that, where they have these traditions where they would all they had a big family, they all get dressed up. All the girls had one set of pajamas that would choreograph a dance, and all the boys would have one set of pajamas. And it looked like, oh my gosh, this family has like the most like epic Christmas. Like on Christmas Eve, he would rent out this like an urban air or something like that just for his family, and they would be
Yeah.
like doing all of that. Anyway, the purpose of this is that it came out years later, and he talked about it they talked about it on their channel, that they were going through a lot because he was struggling with alcoholism and struggling with talking to some women online that he wasn't supposed to be talking to, and that was not something that was in there, like that was not something okay with his wife, and it all started coming out. So it's like the picture perfect family. Oftentimes, as we see depicted on social media, there's things going on. I'm not saying everyone has something to that extreme or anything like that, but I could
It's
just give countless
definitely a
examples.
lot. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot. I've watched at this point a couple of documentaries of, scary parents who are like forcing their kids to do these channels to make money off of them, or like in a way, like kids being almost sex trafficked to do some of these things. I mean, you hear crazy stories, like families that look perfect, or I remember when I was a kid, like I was always really intrigued by the Duggar family. I don't know if anybody knows what that is,
19
because
kids and
they
counting.
they
Yeah.
there were certain things, in not in like how they preached or what they believed necessarily, but certain practices that were a little bit similar to Jewish like ways of observing things, like their modest clothing, or like not really touching the opposite gender. Just there were certain similarities. And I was like so intrigued. I'm like, what kind of like Christian Catholic? I was trying to understand, and also that they had so many kids, and we come from a religion that also has a lot of children. So it was very intriguing to me. And when everything ended up coming out about that family, and still till today, those kids are like releasing books and podcasts and doing shows
Yeah.
about how traumatizing their lives were, and how like evil, their brother was, and their father, and whatever. I'm not here to, go nuts on the family, but the point is just, you really don't know what is behind the camera, what is behind the smiles. People that got involved, I don't remember what her name was, like people that got involved in like cults and all kinds of. And again, we're not conspiracy theorists saying that every single thing you see on social media is some horror story.
Right.
But the point is just, even to the smallest capacity, you just don't know what someone's going through, and you don't know what's behind the camera, and you don't know what's behind the smile, or what's behind the matching pajamas.
Yeah.
So, like,
Absolutely. Hmm.
no, it's just, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, there's definitely reasons for you to be able to sit within your own holiday and have mixed feelings. And it's not to undermine that. And I think we're going to get into, um, like how to deal with some of those very real situations that make holidays difficult. And this isn't to negate that is a real thing and that it exists, but we have enough within our own like experiences of holidays to sometimes overcome that. The last thing we need is to then add another element of pain or stress or jealousy or frustration in comparing ourselves to the rest of the world, or what we think the rest of the world is doing.
Yeah. That's a great point. And if anyone's interested, I know Rachel, you were interested when I posted on my stories the Counting the Cost book from Jill Duggar.
Yeah.
It's a really great book, and I would encourage people to read it, even if you're not familiar with the family, but especially if you're familiar with the family, because then you have more of an understanding as to what we're talking about, where things that are what they appear aren't necessarily what they are. So let's talk a little bit about food. I think that one of the first things that we think about when we think about Thanksgiving is the food, because that is a big part of the connection point as to the meal that everyone's preparing, and where we sit around and enjoy the time with each other, or maybe struggle with the time that we have with each other, as we're going to explore a little bit more. But especially if you are struggling with an eating disorder, or really, I don't believe you have to be struggling with an eating disorder in
Mhm.
order to be struggling with the food piece of it. A lot of people struggle with body image. A lot of people struggle with trying to have a healthy, adaptive relationship with food, and don't like when diet talk comes up, which unfortunately comes up way too much with a lot of families, at least from what we hear throughout our work with our clients. And there can also be a big feeling of guilt for thinking that you ate too much, or whatever the situation might be. A lot of things can come up that maybe are things that you're struggling with this Thanksgiving or in a prior Thanksgiving. So we want to acknowledge that it's not all fun and games. It might have some other emotions tied in, maybe feeling like you're losing control or you're not in control, which can certainly be triggering if you have an eating disorder or some other struggles. So for those who do struggle with eating disorders or disordered eating patterns, one big takeaway is to plan ahead. And I
Mhm.
wish I can give you a like perfect format as to what you can do, but this is something that Rachel and I work so closely with our clients, and it's so individualized. A lot of my clients, and I'm sure Rachel, you probably have this as well, where we increase sessions around holidays, especially early on in their recovery period, because as you move through recovery, what you need a plan for might change. So if you have a therapist, I really hope that you talk with them about what might be a plan for you, like whether it is having what you perceive to be safe foods around, or do we need to have grounding tools? Probably a mix of everything. Planning for having a support person, or planning for taking breaks if you need to. But we want to ideally be able to participate as quote unquote normally as possible in the Thanksgiving holiday. But sometimes it's just not possible for
Mhm.
whatever reason, and we need to accommodate and adjust. Something that's big is not compensating. So when we talk about having a plan, yes, we do usually have a bigger meal depending on the family, middle of the day, later on in the day. And sometimes people say, well, I'm not going to eat breakfast, or I'm not going to do something like that. And while I do absolutely believe that that could be a completely a healthy part of a Thanksgiving holidays, if you're newer in eating disorder recovery, it's a good idea to try to keep with the patterns that you have developed in recovery. Maybe it's a little bit of a lighter breakfast, but again, work with your therapist, but you don't have to plan and to not eat one day or eat a lot less one day in order to prepare for the meal or the next day, or exercise more or anything like that. It's
Mhm.
okay to fully be able to be present for the holiday. It's okay that this day might be a day that you eat very differently than other days, and leaving room for that is really important.
Absolutely. I really think that whenever I hear that people are like skipping meals, and by the way, this isn't crazy. Like I grew up with this also. I grew up with these um ideas as well. So it's not here to be like, oh, this is nuts. But
Mhm.
now where I am, and as a professional, and like Steph said, having been working in this field and with these particular types of issues for so many years, it's so funny because whenever someone says to me like, oh, I'm going to have a lighter breakfast, or I'm going to like skip breakfast, or I'm going to not have lunch, or whatever it is to prepare for Thanksgiving lunch slash dinner, I'm always sitting there going, why are you like planning to binge? I don't
Mhm.
understand. Like you're just having another meal. It just happens to be a Thanksgiving meal. So like
Mhm.
what exactly, why are you changing your day? I don't get it. What's the thought process there that's
Mhm.
making you feel like you need to quote unquote prepare? Like on a
Mhm.
daily day, do you prepare for dinner? No. So like you can go into your Thanksgiving meal and just have a dinner, like maybe you
Mhm.
have more variety and whatever, but like no one's telling you you need to eat till you're gonna vomit, you know,
Mhm.
like so
Yeah.
that's like I think that that's one piece of it, is like not thinking that just because like there's all the foods in the world that you need to eat to the point of discomfort, even if you don't have like a binge problem or a binge eating problem, just the overeating thing, like you don't have to overeat to the point where you're uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But also understanding if it's like, well, I want to be aware of my intake, and like that's it, the types of foods is just more and whatever. That's where, I mean, first of all, like YOLO, like live your life. Part of life and part of our experience with food is the enjoyment it brings us and celebration and whatever. But also understanding that, like Steph said, holiday time, the food is going to look different. So maybe on a normal Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day Thanksgiving is, Thursday, you're not having always dessert maybe after a dinner. And now you are. Okay, whoop-de-doo. You don't have to not have breakfast because of that. Or maybe you're not having as many side dishes and now you are. But again, that doesn't have to mean that you have to like premeditatively prepare for that. So that's another thing. And something I always tell people, and depending on who you're going to and what the situation is, this may be more or less likely to be a reality. But a lot of the reason that people feel the need to like uncomfortably overeat at these holidays is because a lot of the time these meals or these specific types of foods like are not things that they generally have, not necessarily because they won't even let themselves have it, but also just because it's not there. These are not
Right.
foods that are made all year long. Maybe it's not foods that is always accessible to them, and they feel like I have to try everything, I have to eat everything. So my little piece of advice to you, if that's like part of your radar, but you're also like, I don't want to eat till I feel like I'm gonna puke, is pack yourself a little to-go box. And you can be open about it with the person that's hosting. Be like, hey, this all looks so good and I cannot fit it in my stomach. Is it okay if I just like pack a little bit so I can have some tomorrow? Because it looks so good and I'd really love to try it. And I think most people who like prepared the food, and I could tell you as somebody who hosts all the time, would actually appreciate that. And
Absolutely.
I'm not saying sit there and pretend like, you're at an all you can eat taking takeout. Like obviously within reason and like tastefully, but give yourself the opportunity to try those foods in a way that's actually enjoyable and not when you're so stuffed and at this point you're just like putting the next thing in your mouth to say that you tried it and it's not even enjoyable anymore. But that's a way where you can really still try and have all the things and not create like an unhealthy situation with the meal.
Yeah, those are great tips, and just being really mindful, trying to be touching base with yourself. And something else, when we talk about not compensating, that we can make ourselves really, really vulnerable to want to or be pulled to overeat or eat past the point of fullness, possibly to the point of discomfort or even pain or sickness when you're not eating throughout the day as you might normally do that. So that's why we really want to be mindful about having normal meals. It might look different because maybe you go to a place that they do a lot of like appetizers or they're doing a lot of like hors d'oeuvres during the day. So just that's where it's important to be planning, but trying to be mindful. And it's okay because a lot of times we're sitting around the Thanksgiving table for like quite some time. Take a break. If you're not really sure, take a break, 10, 15 minutes, check in with yourself, give yourself a little bit of time to digest, but also time for your body, your brain to catch up with your body and say, hey, I do want more. I don't want more. So give yourself some time and space. And absolutely great tip on just asking, like, can I take some home? And I really do believe that most hosts or hostesses like are already planning and hoping for that. They usually have their to-go boxes ready to go, or to go boxes like handy to hand out food, because a lot of times we make so much food that it's going to go bad before people can possibly, like one family or one small.
100%.
Yeah.
And also like, guys, show yourselves some grace. Like at the end of the day, even within the intuitive eating model, and I know that that's not the conversation right now, but everything we're saying is with the hopes that the end result is intuitively eating. But if you find that you did overeat or like, you at the end of the night, your stomach starts to hurt and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should have had that second piece of pie. Like it's okay. It's just part of the human experience. Sometimes we end up like overeating. I always say I have this love-hate relationship with pizza because I've come
love
to terms with
pizza.
it, but like I really adore pizza. And I have this, and I promise you there's a point to this analogy, but like I always like I have this like struggle because when I finish 2 slices of pizza, I always want a third. I'm like not satisfied. I always want a third. And if I ever eat a third, I want to puke after. I feel disgusting. It's just like my body. No, nothing wrong with eating a third. That's just like what is discomforting in my body. And what it took me a really, really long time to figure out is that 2 slices of pizza was not making me feel satisfied because I wasn't really hitting all of the nutritional groups. And what was really helpful was to add like a side salad to that or something else that was still meeting my nutritional needs and also making me feel full and satisfied. And then I didn't even want the third, but I can't even tell you guys how many times I had that third slice feeling icky and feeling uncomfortable, and until like I figured this out. And that doesn't make me a bad person or make me wrong or make me be like, oh, where's your willpower to not have the third? No, it was just like, I'm figuring out what works for me and what doesn't. And a lot of people are on that journey like forever, like figuring out what works for you in different capacities and different times and different settings. And you're gonna sometimes end up eating more than is physically comfortable. And it's okay. It's a temporary feeling. It will pass and nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah. Grace with yourself is so important. And sometimes we are trying different foods like that's available around Thanksgiving that we don't normally have outside, like you said already, Rachel. But sometimes we have food that's like really, really delicious, and sometimes we just keep eating it because it's really good. And sometimes it's okay that happens and you might feel overly full. We want to do our best to try to be mindful, but sometimes we might be eating past the point because it's just like really, really good. It's something a little bit different. So we just have to have grace with ourselves, and we can reevaluate, or we can reflect and see like, hey, did I learn something from this? Is there something different I could be doing? But above all, having grace and kindness with yourself is so important. So speaking of which, we want to also be mindful about the comments that we're making around the food table. And I know it's unfortunate because some other people might like to make comments around food or body sizes, or like, oh, this is so bad, or I'm not going to eat anything tomorrow, or you look like you lost weight, or you look like you gained weight, or whatever it is. There's so many different comments that are so off color. I have to tell a story that just happened. The other day I was checking out a new store in our community, and I found this like big box of sampler chocolates that I wanted to get as a Christmas gift for someone who loves like these types of chocolates, and it was like this jumbo size or whatever. So I was checking it out and checking out with that and a couple other things. And there was an older woman behind me online was like, wow, that's one big box of chocolate. I laughed. I'm like, yeah, it definitely is. And I think it's going to be a great gift. And then like that I thought would be like the conversation.
Right.
And she kept like mentioning, she's like, oh my gosh, I just can't believe what a big box of chocolate that is. I'd never seen a box of chocolate that big. And like just like socially, like what else am I supposed to say to it? Because like I'm just like kind of laughing, like what am I supposed to like?
Clearly, this woman is having her own like moment right now.
Yeah. I'm like, what else can I add to this conversation? But two, I'm like, geez, like I know I've talked to my clients about this all the time. It's something that I'm not insinuating by any means that she had any intent with it, or maybe she's struggling in her own right that she can't even conceive that a box of chocolates could be that big, or it was just like her trying to make conversation. I don't think that there was anything, up with that. But I'm like, even dealing with this all the time, I'm starting to get insecure. I'm like, my gosh, like how many times are you going to make a comment about this?
Yeah.
And I was with my brother at the time, and when we walked out of the store, he picked up on it too. And he started saying, he's like, wow, that's one big box of chocolates.
Oh
I'm like, yeah, everyone. So it was just like, okay, but all that to say is that some people, maybe it's just not something that they've ever really understood. These types of comments you don't make with people.
Yeah.
It's hard because it might be a generational thing. It might be something that someone else is struggling with. Someone else might be really much on the diet bandwagon, who everything like food is moral, like, or immoral. So we want to try to be talking more neutrally about food, hopefully avoiding people's body at all costs. I don't think that's really a topic of conversation that needs to be happening on Thanksgiving or really ever.
Yeah.
And then so we can model if you are finding that there's a lot of people around you who are having these types of comments, maybe you can model more neutral or positive language around food. If you're going to make comments about the food, compliment it. Say, oh, I really like this. Oh, what a great choice to add this into this. There's a lot of things you could do with that.
Yeah, I what I've really found to be helpful as a tool I give clients that I think really just like helps neutralize their own inner dialogue, because the truth of the matter is I definitely, Lord knows, I know what it's like to be at a family table and there are comments about food and body left and right to no end, from the beginning of the meal to the end of the meal. And the reality is that, listen, some people are just going to get up and leave. And that might be you. And like, if that's what you choose for yourself, you know, you do you, but there's a lot of people who aren't. And like, this is just the reality of your family, and you kind of learn to live with it. So this is the tidbit I give to anyone who, especially who is in active recovery, at any stage of recovery. Keep this in mind. When you started eating disorder treatment, whatever that looked like, in the hospital, IOP, PHP, private practice, whatever, before you started talking to your professional, there was an entire language of eating disorder that was a different language to you. You didn't know what I always say, like, you put on or take off like an entire like new lens of the universe once you learn the world through like showing you what diet culture actually is, and like bringing it to light. And before that, like, the things that you and I talk about are literally, they might as well be in a different language. Like, there's just so many thoughts and concepts and things that we just don't even realize are things until it's brought to our attention how much this has impacted our mental health, how much this has impacted our body, how much this has impacted our relationship with food. And keep in mind that the people at your meal who are making these comments have never been exposed or psychoeducated to this knowledge, to this language, to this insight that you now have, that once upon a time you didn't. And once upon a time you probably made some of these comments. So instead of, and obviously this is easier said than done, but instead of internalizing what these people are saying or like taking it to heart or letting it defeat you, I want you to, I'm like, this is going to sound a little bit like almost egotistical, but I always tell my clients, I'm like, sit there and tell yourself, like, I'm so sorry for them that they're this like disconnected from like a healed self, or that they're this unknowledgeable about, you know, what it genuinely means to find health and intuitive eating, and you know, being able to just like live an enjoyable life in your body and with food. And like, that's so sad that they're still there. Like, I feel sorry for them, and like come from that mindset, as opposed to, oh my gosh, yeah, like they're saying they're going to go on a diet after this. I think I should do that. Maybe tomorrow I should start a juice cleanse. No, no, no. Remember
Yeah.
where they're coming from in that statement.
Right. Yeah, they're struggling in their own right, and coming with grace, coming from a place of grace with that as well is important. And some other things that you could be doing is make sure you ground yourself before the meal. If you need to take a couple deep breaths, make sure you have a person that maybe is at the dinner table that you can talk to or connect with if you need, or even if you need to take a step and go to a different room, get some fresh air, whatever you have to do, and try to be mindful about whatever tools that you need to use, and you could do it and excuse yourself kindly and tastefully as well. And something else that really could be helpful is keeping your eyes on your own plate. That's something that I say for people who want to compare their plates to other people, or whether or not someone else had seconds or something like that. Eyes on your own plate. That's something just keep saying to yourself. And food is nourishment. Food is a place of connection. It doesn't have to be something that we judge. I know it's hard, but we can keep reinforcing that to ourselves. And if you need to say it out loud, if you're trying to steer a conversation away from all the diet talk, then you can choose something that you could say, like, I'm trying to focus on enjoying the food, not judging it, or I'd rather not talk about that. It's okay for you to set boundaries. And hopefully, as long as you do say that in a way that you prepare or that you are having the best intentions with, hopefully the people around you will respond with respect.
Yeah, and I will say one more thing regarding looking at this from a different lens. If you're someone that struggles with not eating or coming from a place of more tendencies that align more with like anorexia nervosa or orthorexia or things where you're going to be restricting yourself and you're going into a Thanksgiving meal and it's so overwhelming that you don't want to put a single thing in your mouth, I, I really challenge you to give yourself a single challenge, whether that's I want to fill up a plate of new things and take at least one bite of something new, or I want to pick up one new food and actually finish the portion I give myself, or
Mhm.
I want to at least eat like what my dietitian told me is my bare minimum and not be overwhelmed by what's happening around me and let that affect my plan with my dietitian and my therapist. Like whatever your challenge is, try to like stay in your bubble, stay in your lane and focus on your goal. Thanksgiving does not have to destroy that for you. You
Mhm.
know what, you know where you're at, you know what's a challenge for you. I say to my clients, like the ones who are um, in that like higher place of recovery in terms of your like have a functional eating disorder. Guys, this is not a time to start rationalizing all of your behaviors. You know what you're
Mhm.
capable of doing. Enjoy the holiday. Push yourselves a little bit. Like, don't let this make you go 15 steps backwards. It's not necessary. It does not have to happen.
Yeah, I have had a few experiences with clients that I've seen long term from like very early on in their eating disorder recovery. And when you have multiple like Thanksgivings or multiple
Yeah.
like holidays that you're dealing with, it's so, it's just such a, like, I'm grateful for being able to witness the changes and the shifts. And it's such a great time too, if this is where you're struggling, that you could recognize what my struggles are this year and how much different it is from the struggle the year before. And almost without fail, you're always in a much better place. And we take a moment to celebrate that in our sessions. Like, wow, like remember when this was like something that you wouldn't even think or consider doing? And like
Yeah.
now here you are.
Yeah.
So exciting. So give yourself some credit wherever you are, even if you're early on,
Yeah.
just even challenging yourself or any progress that you made,
Yeah.
give yourself credit.
And like this is a very large part of what you're fighting for in recovery. It's to be
Mhm.
able to have holidays like this and moments like this and experiences like this where your biggest stress is like, which cookie should I try? They all look so good. Okay, let me take a bite of all of them. Like that
Mhm.
should be your biggest stress. And the only thing you should worry about after is your Black Friday shopping list, not how you're going to compensate for what you ate or what you should feel about your morality. And this is what you're working towards. And keep that in mind. You deserve
Mhm.
to enjoy it just like everybody else. Going into other potential stressors that come with the beauty of these holidays, specifically Thanksgiving as well. Travel, emotional jet lag. Guys, this is a real universal problem.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it, I think this is where the packing lists, the to-do lists can be really helpful. But also just like trying to create whatever level of stability within the cuckoo-ness of your routine going out the window. Changing scenery, potentially you're sleeping in a different place. You might be going to a place where there's a time difference.
Mhm.
Maybe you're somebody that gets really overwhelmed with packing. Try to just set yourself up for success. Like let's say, for example, we've done entire podcasts on night and morning routines. Try to keep your night and morning routine as much as you can, even if you're not staying at home. Um, obviously, like maybe you're sleeping a few less hours, or maybe it's happening much later and you have to cut a little bit of your routine down, but try and keep certain major things the same. If there's something like music or a blanket or something that like brings you comfort wherever you are, bring it with you. If you're getting overwhelmed by the amount of things going on, try to use organizational tools to keep your thoughts in check. It's a lot. Honestly, it's a lot balancing it because it's not even like
Mhm.
the world doesn't stop turning. Like the day before this, you're essentially working a normal day, whatever. And then poof, like the holiday comes and you need to be like in the new place and you need to be, switched up to this new gear of you're with a bunch of people. Maybe you're somebody that always works remotely. It can be really overwhelming. Like it really can be a lot. Um, so, whatever it is that you think is going to set you up for success, keep your peace, um, keep your sleep routine, your food routine. Try and like pack and prepare in ways that's going to stop any type of travel plan or being with other people or change in scenery or routine um, be like less negatively effective.
Mhm.
Um, and there's a whole aspect of going home that could be really triggering, whether you're seeing family or friends that bring up things for you that maybe you don't want brought up, things in maybe the location that you're going to that have negative memories associated with it. I think a lot can come up, and it can make it really hard to be present in the moment and to enjoy. And sometimes we walk back into, especially if you're going back home, you almost like revert back to this childhood version of yourself. And we have this like concept of like the regression effect. It can be really hard if that's happening to you. You're not alone. And it really can just be so helpful to use grounding tools to remind yourself like where you are in life right now, how old you are, like what your current life looks like, that this version of you is not the version of you that used to live here or used
Mhm.
to be with these people or whatever it is. Um, a lot of you who are listening to this podcast might also be in therapy. Whatever work that you've been doing in therapy, whatever work you've been doing to, be insightful, be emotionally in tune, like utilizing different skills and tools to just like maintain your mental health, they don't need to go out the window the minute that you like exit your house. If you are going to a place that's triggering, that is great. Like use this as a challenge to take everything that you've been working on and learning and utilize it. Like this is the time to like, bring the toolbox out, whip out everything you've learned and let it service you. This is exactly what you're doing that work for.
Yeah, show off the tools, and it's a good exercise for that. So let's talk about something that a lot of us try to avoid talking about because it's really can bring up a lot of emotions, and that's when the holidays look different because of grief of some sort. So unfortunately, a big part of the holiday season is a reminder of change and things and loss, like things that are no longer how they used to be. And maybe you look back and miss that, however, the holidays used to be, whether it was with another person or um, traditions that you really valued, and for some reason they're no longer here. So if you are dealing with the loss of someone as a result of like a death or divorce, or maybe you have someone that you love in like the military who is in overseas and not around you, and that's really scary and really hard to deal with when you are trying to celebrate and there are people missing. Or maybe as a result of a divorce you have children that as a result of the custody arrangement you don't have them and you're like alone. Whatever the circumstances is, there are so many different ones to list.
Mm.
Grief doesn't take the holidays off. In fact, I think that grief uses it, and well, grief usually becomes more
Heightened. It's
robust.
definitely heightened in holidays for sure. And
Yeah.
especially if you're like within the beginning of grief, and
Hmm.
everyone says like grief comes in waves. It will hit you very hard on a holiday, and just know that if and when that's happening for you, you are definitely not alone. Um, and you guys know I'm not a fan of the word normal, but quite frankly, it is totally normal for that to happen.
Yeah.
Not fun. And I would say reach out to a support group, friends, loved ones, but it's a very real thing. And also, for those of you who, we have big T and little T traumas, I feel like we need to have big G and little G griefs. Like,
Yeah.
it might not be a death. It might be somebody that you were really, really good friends with, maybe someone you grew up with in your hometown that you're not friends with anymore. And going home just really reminds you of that childhood friend that is not in your life anymore. And maybe that just hurts and it's just sad. Or, you know, like this is such a weird example, but I don't know why this is one of the first things that popped into my head. Like my family, my extended family is, thank God, insanely large, insanely large.
Mhm.
And God bless them all. When we used to do Thanksgiving, we all did it together. And
Mhm.
it was an insane amount of people, an insanely humongous table. And at this point, we're at a point when I'm telling you like extended family, I'm telling you it was like first cousins, second cousins, third cousins. We were all under one roof.
Amazing.
And now we're at a point where everyone has gotten married and had kids, and their kids have gotten married and have kids, and their kids. And at this point, if we wanted to do Thanksgiving under one roof, we would need a ballroom, quite frankly. We literally need to rent out a wedding hall. And so we don't really get to do that anymore. We like literally don't get to see each other on holidays anymore. We see each other when there's like a humongous life event, hopefully good things, but
Mhm.
if like somebody's getting married. And
Mhm.
it's bittersweet because I'm like, look at these beautiful families we've all built within ourselves that we get to spend this holiday with. But it's sad because like I
Um,
miss my extended, like I don't get to see them anymore. Like I don't get to sit down and make cocktails with my cousins or like joke around with my uncles, or because we've all created our own families. And like that part of growing up and getting to see my extended family, it's just, I don't want to say it's gone, but it kind of is. And if that's what grief looks like for you, that's also valid. It comes in all shapes and forms. And even if you're surrounded by people, if that like wave of sadness comes for you, that's valid and that's okay.
yeah, we really need to normalize and give yourself permission to feel things that aren't just happiness and joy and gratitude. Give yourself permission to feel sadness or anger or grief in whatever way that in whatever form it's coming for you
Mhm.
and or coming to you. And we can be mindful, or some of the ways that we might be able to cope with it is by adapting traditions. If
Yeah.
there's something that maybe someone always carved the turkey and that person isn't there anymore, then come up with something different, or a new person who can bring some sort of that spirit into that particular event. You can light a candle, you could say
Yeah.
a prayer, make someone's favorite dish if that person isn't there, or if they're overseas or something like that, you could celebrate in a way for them, share a memory. There are different ways that we can use this holiday in processing our grief in a way that doesn't debilitate you, and
Mhm.
can honor your grief as well. And you can skip traditions if something is just too painful. It's
Mhm.
okay to take a break this year, and you can reevaluate next year. And it's also okay to honor it and leave into the past. Whatever is right for you and the people that are meaningful to you. And another part here is dialectics, which is basically this idea, and this is big in dialectical behavioral therapy, that two things can coexist that might even be conflicting. You could feel joy and feel grief. You could feel gratitude and feel sad. They are not something that it's just so simple where we just feel one or the other.
Mhm.
You can miss someone terribly and still have fun and still enjoy the holiday, or still laugh at whatever is going on there. So we really encourage you to be compassionate with yourself and others. And it's okay. And even if it's sad that the holidays look a little bit different, and we could give yourself time to honor that in whatever way that you need to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautifully said stuff. Um, that brings us, I guess, to a little bit of a harsher topic to deal with, which is family conflict and boundaries, you guys.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, I said the boundary word. I know, I know. Um,
The
okay,
B word.
B word. So the truth is, we really have an entire podcast on boundaries, which I think that if you came to this episode for that, go back to the boundary
Mm.
episode because everything that we said in that episode doesn't like go out the window on Thanksgiving. It all still very much applies. And so my
Yeah.
point is that because this episode is really not based on breaking down what boundaries are, the point is hold your boundaries for dear life when you are around your table, because these type of environments are like half of the reason that we create them, so that in these moments where the paws come out and the boundaries try so hard to be broken, you are able to stand your ground and, stay grounded during these moments. And also, like, mentally prepare yourself a little. I always say, for the most part, as much as we want everything to be kumbaya and live within our therapeutic psychobabble little bubble, that's not life. We can't control everyone around us. We can't control the environments we're going to be in. You could choose to remove yourself from them, but like, from my own experience, a lot of people and a lot of families and cultures within their own decision don't. They're not going to just like not go to these family events. So I'm like, if you have that uncle with no filter, that have that cousin that always gives you the resting, what face, you have you have the sibling that you're always going to get into a tiff with, you have the parent that's going to trigger every single thing in childhood you've ever been through. Mentally prepare yourself. Like, your family, what you're getting into, and this is not like your first rodeo. And let that empower you. Like, I know what they're going to say. I know what they're going to do. It's almost a feeling of you taking control and saying, I am not going to internalize these sentences. These people can literally talk to themselves. And obviously, I truly say that, like, within my own experience of it, that is so much easier said than done. But it definitely helps if you're already putting yourself in that mental space days prior to even experiencing Thanksgiving at all. And also just like truly getting in tune with yourself before getting to the holiday. Identify your triggers within people, within the environment. If there's someone there that particularly, generally drains your energy, stick with the people that fill your cup. Try to stick in conversations with people that make you feel good, that give you life and excitement when you talk to them. If someone says something that's like triggering or upsetting or whatever, honestly, just change the subject, or just say, honestly, I really don't want to talk about that with you, like, moving on, and just change the subject. If someone said something that is really hard and you need a minute to gather yourself, and by the way, this is true also for just being in tune with yourself in regards to the eating, it's okay to excuse yourself for a moment. You could say, I need to go to the bathroom, even when you don't need to go to the bathroom, and like, take a minute, go to the restroom, or step outside, go to a different room, and just like take a second to compose yourself, check in with yourself, work on the inner dialogue happening for you, and try to keep yourself in that healthier headspace. It's also helpful to utilize like neutral responses where you're not being rude, but you're clearly showing someone that you're not interested in a conversation and they should probably change the subject now. You could say, oh, okay, I haven't thought about that, or that's nice, or that's interesting. And don't really add to the conversation, and hopefully they're socially equipped enough to get it. And don't worry, we know there are people who are not going to pick up on that, and I'm sure that we are together with these podcast episodes, like, gaining the tools to know in those situations what to do. And it's a lot of the intentions you're setting for yourself. Like, you're not there to, I feel like, I don't know if this is your experience, Stephanie, but sometimes I have to like remind myself, I am not there on the job. It's not my job to sit there and fix everybody and save the world and get everyone's mindset out of diet culture and like talk to everyone about their traumas. Like, I don't need to prove anything to anyone today. I don't need to fix anyone today. This is not my problem.
Absolutely. I think it's so, I always try to look at it like our hats, like when I am like with my friends, for an example, and they're like looking for advice, and I'll straight up say, be like, what response do you want? Do you want me to put my therapist hat on, or do you want my friend hat on? Because they're going to be a little bit different. Probably one just is a little bit more, or a little less professional than the other, but it's something that we need to be able to be saying, I'm here as a guest, or I'm here as a host or a hostess or whatnot, and just to be a person enjoying the holidays with the people that I care about. And I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not saying that other people are baiting, but just taking our own bait where it's like someone saying something that they're struggling with, and our inclination is so much to be like, well, let's talk about that, let's figure that out. But we really do need to be mindful in outside of holidays as well of not taking that on, because that could be really debilitating for us, and where we're never taking that hat off. We can't always be giving that type of energy all the time. So totally hear you on that.
Yeah. And I'll say, since we're all about the sharing the wisdom in this episode today, another helpful tool to go into this holiday with is, a lot of the time people forget that this might not be your situation. And if it's not, you can ignore what I'm saying right now. But a lot of the time we go into these holidays, and what we don't realize is our support system for a lot of it, even though they could be very triggering on this holiday, are the people that we're going to for the holiday. So a lot of the time we end up finding ourselves in a room full of our support system, but then we need support. And we're like, oh my gosh, what do I do with myself? And that's when therapists start getting all of the like emergency calls and texts in the middle of Thanksgiving of people losing their minds. So here is the little like piece of advice I'm going to give you going into the holidays, whether that's like you're going to friends and you want to set up with family, or going to family and you want to set up with friends, whoever you are going to, that you know is generally your support system, before the holiday starts, create like a tag team with another person where you're both going to be each other's lifelines, where if something comes up on the holiday, they're not going to be stuck to their phone all the time, because obviously we all want to enjoy and hopefully be present, but just that person is going to be like your lifeline or your safety net for if you need support. It might not be the literal second you need it, and you're going to be okay, but at least at some point within Thanksgiving or on Thanksgiving weekend, you know that you can turn to that person and you don't feel like you're going to be a burden, or you don't feel like you're disturbing them, because you've already pre-discussed that if and when something ends up coming up within the room full of your normal support system, that there's this other person that you can call that can offer you just like, even if it's just a listening ear, honestly.
Yeah. And if you need, I know we said it earlier, think ahead and schedule a session with your therapist. Maybe you want another one the day after Thanksgiving. I know I've definitely done that to help debrief.
Yeah.
Or, as early on as they're offering sessions, because sometimes therapists are taking off right after that. But if it's on the Monday following, whatever it is, but have that conversation ahead of time. And if you think that you're going to need a debrief session, make sure it's on the schedule as early as possible.
Yeah, because our schedules get very full very fast around holidays, like the day before and the day after.
Yeah. Everyone wants the preparation sessions as well as the debrief sessions for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So that is, let's bring it to our takeaways. So Thanksgiving absolutely doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful and to be something to be enjoyed. You can enjoy it even without everything being fine. You can have conflicting feelings at the same time, or experiences. Like you can experience joy and also be experiencing grief. So consider reflecting on the following questions. Like, what do you actually need to feel grounded this week? Think ahead and plan ahead. I think a big theme that we could take from today is planning, and just making sure we are planned for all the different contingencies that are likely or possible to happen. So whatever you need to do to maybe shift a little bit to feel a little bit more grounded, reflect on that and try to come up with an action plan. But also ask yourself, like, how can you honor yourself and others without losing your peace or your sanity? So those are some questions to reflect on. And that brings us to our listeners' question. As you all know, we take a moment at the end of each session to answer one of your questions. So if you would like a chance for one of your questions to be featured on one of our next sessions, you could send over a question to our Instagram at Coffee and Counseling Podcast or to our email, coffeeandcounselingpodcast@gmail.com. And this question came up because we do talk about it a lot as our gratitude practice. So this question came up and I thought it was really fitting for today's session is, how do I actually practice gratitude? Would you like me to take it or you want to take it, Rachel?
Go for it, Steph.
Okay. Take everything Rachel and I said before when we preface what we were saying about our gratitude and what we are grateful for. And Rachel we both did 3 different things. So what we would recommend is making an action plan where every single day, ideally, if you have a notebook, that's great because there is something about the act of writing it down that does something for us. But if that's just not something that's going to end up working for you, we get it. Use your phone and every single day, take a time and a time each day that you're able to do it and write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And this is going to be a challenge where it's not just like the things that you're easily able to rattle off. We're trying to find 3 different things every single day so that you really can connect to that spirit of gratitude through some of the more smaller things that are going into your life and having that more as a spirit. Is there anything that I missed there?
No, not at all.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to today's session. We are hoping and encouraging you all to give yourself grace this Thanksgiving, and for the Christians out there this holiday season. Set small intentions instead of big expectations, and focus on connection with others and yourself over control. If you felt that this session helped you, we ask that you share it with someone who might need that reminder this week that they're not alone. And Rachel and I want to take this moment to wish you all a calm, compassionate, and meaningful Thanksgiving, one that nourishes you in more ways than one. And we hope you join us again next week for our next session.
Thank you guys for being here. Like, subscribe, and comment below.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Please follow our Instagram at Coffee and Counseling Podcast and send any questions you have about any topic to us via direct message for a chance for your question to be featured in one of our next sessions. You can also email us your questions or topic suggestions at coffeeandcounselingpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to check out some of our other sessions available to you right now. Once you drink up all of those and your coffee, come back next Tuesday for our next session.
The information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute therapy or mental health advice. Listening to this podcast does not establish a therapeutic relationship between you and the hosts. If you are in need of support, we encourage you to seek help from a qualified mental health professional. This podcast is not a substitute for individualized care. We do offer individualized therapy. If you're interested in individual therapy with one of us, please visit our practice website and send us an email to set up a free consultation call. All of the links and our contact info will be in the show notes.